Okay, you're making it sound so much more magnificent than it actually is. That sounds really great. So, how many of you recognize this screen? How many of you actually typed text into this screen? Alright, so a fair number of you. I will be relying on you to fill in the gaps of the things that I miss when I'm recalling things that I did when I was young. Alright, so let's switch from this existential picture to some actual slides. So, where is the Commodore 64? I wrote this proposal to Sean the day before the deadline, and I was like, because I was thinking about when I was a kid, I had this, beautiful beige box. And the thing about this beige box was that it plugged into your TV, you didn't have a monitor, you didn't have a mouse, it was just this beautiful thing. The thing about the Commodore that's sort of interesting that if you don't know anything about it, is that it was sort of positioned as an everyman computer versus the IBM PC. So the IBM PC would be for the fathers who had the business machines and had money to buy one of these things that cost, $1,400 and $1982. So Commodore was able to say, well, we're making a computer that's not just for wealthy persons, for whiz-kid persons, for privileged persons, but persons. They positioned this as a computer for everyone. And there were other computers like this at the time, like the Atari ST, and there's a Texas Instruments computer. And Commodore did a lot of underhanded things similar to what a big business does to undercut all their competition, and they basically wiped them out, and that was that. So they were able to lower because of that, the price was dropped very low, and it hit about $200, and that's when I got one, because I grew up in a family where we had one income, lived in an apartment with 2 bedrooms. I shared one room with my sister. We didn't have a lot of money, so this is the machine that I could get my hands on. So when you booted up the computer, I got it on Christmas Day, I got really excited, and I turned it on, and this is what I saw. It was like a musical instrument in that way. It's like it was waiting for me to do something. It was nothing without me doing input, but like a musical instrument, I would need to know where to put my hands on the guitar and how to strum and all these things, and this doesn't provide any of that. Now, of course, you could always plug in a cartridge and you could get, that kind of game like you would get on your Nintendo Entertainment System or other consoles. But after a while, even though I got really good at, does anyone recognize what this game is? Gyrus? Oh my god, Gyrus is so good. I'm really good at Gyrus because I had like one game and I played it a lot. But when that's done, you're back here. So, what was really cool is that there were a lot of magazines at the time that would actually have these things called type-in programs. Let's see if this slide here is great. So, my friend Joe, who's in the audience here, Joe Lafioska, thank you for letting me photograph your ephemeral artifacts. They would have these programs that were literally lines of code, and this is in 3-2-1 contact. This is for kids. This is not for even teenagers or even middle school kids. This is for people who are like 10 years old. So nowadays they would give you the program and maybe you would alter the code, but the storage media was like a floppy disk like this. It was very expensive to send those out. So you were expected to type this in line by line and then run it. And they would never show you a picture of what that game actually was. It would show you like this illustration. So you would be like imagining like this is gonna be this great thing. I'm gonna play this great game. So this is where I actually take this here and full screen this. So actually this is yesterday. I typed in this whole program, and even though I am a somewhat experienced programmer today, I am actually a research scientist at Georgia Tech. I do research in games, but I didn't get my undergrad until I was 33 years old. So I had to learn programming later in life. So I'm maybe not as skilled as some of you guys. I'm more on the human-computer interaction side of things. So I typed in all this code, and I was able to figure out, oh, these pokes mean that you're writing things to memory addresses and stuff like that, but there's a lot of gobbledygook in here. There's a lot of go-tos in here, which I know the hair on the back of your neck is probably coming up when you see the go-tos. So if I run this program, then it's doing, so the cat's name is, what's the cat's name? Peaches. What's the mouse's name?
Rob.
Okay. Alright, any key to begin. So, now we have Peaches. We have Rob. Rob needs to get to the hole, and the cat tries to get the mouse, and this is hard to do, but let's let. Oh! Rob wins. But of course, this would always happen. You would type in this program, and it would say syntax error in 340, and you're like, ugh. But what was wonderful about this is that I knew the program worked because it was in a magazine. Well, 95% of the time. Sometimes you get the next month's issue and say, actually there was a problem in that program. But most of the time I realized it was due to my error and not the fault of the program. So I got to learn the sort of literacy of seeing differences and looking for problems that I had caused by typing this in. So if I type list 340 and we go out of full screen and pull up the actual code, we can see that, maybe because it's kind of small, that I forgot a single colon right here. And I can't go cursor up to this. I actually have to type the whole thing out all over again. And in a way, this is great because, I don't know, it's like I'm punishing myself. But I have to type every line in. And nowadays, if you have a Stack Overflow or you have a chunk of code, people don't type it in. They don't think about what each line is as you're typing in, but you have to do it in BASIC. You just throw it in there and you cross your fingers, and I see this all the time because I teach a computer audio class. I teach students Unity. These are computer science students who've already taken computer science classes, but they're taking many classes. They're just trying to get something to work, so they just copy and paste and throw it in there, and they don't really know how it works, but it works, and now they go on to the next thing, and I totally understand. All right, so I type this in, I hit list, and now I have to scroll through everything, and now I can see that my change has actually been made. If I wanted to insert a line, I would actually have to type a number that was in between. Yeah. And then when I type list, then it will insert that line in between. So it's a bit kludgy. If you run out of space in between these, you can't have 330.5 or anything like that. So I learned how to type on a keyboard by doing this. I learned how to recognize these problems with my code. These are all, and I also learned that programs were a series of commands. That you just type in text and things happen. That each line actually does something. I didn't know what these lines meant when I was like 10 years old and I was typing this in, but this sort of thing stuck with me, and the way it manifested itself was kind of an interesting place, to me anyway. This is where it manifested itself. Did anyone ever play games on a calculator like this? Similar to the people who got Commodore. So the Texas Instruments TI-8281, they had their own version of BASIC. And if you got a game from someone, usually through a link cable, because you couldn't download it from the internet in 1993, 1994, feel the age, feel the just simmer over it. It was interpreted, so I could look at the commands, and even though I didn't have any programming training, I really didn't read a book on how to program. I knew that, oh, this is a series of commands. It's just a list. They're doing things in order. So I actually coded a version of Battleship that worked with a link cable between two calculators at the end of my 11th grade English class, computer science class, because I didn't really pay attention to that class. I was in the back of the room on this calculator typing in code and making skiing games and all sorts of weird things. And that was solely from looking at other people's code and changing things and seeing what it did. And this is where I sort of pivot to like thinking about, well, how can what are the problems of today and why are we there now because of all this technology that we have now that makes things so easy to just consume but not to actually create. And there's, there's controversy about, say, when tablets came out, when phones came out, and everyone's like, oh, you can't program this thing, it's terrible. Well, when you got a Windows 95 computer in 1996, it was not easy to get to programming there either. It required, let's install Visual Studio or install this thing and make the compiler work. Oh, we got to link everything. And there's all these barriers between actually writing code and seeing what the output is. On the Commodore, that was very easy, but in a lot of modern environments, that's very hard. So the question I really have for you guys now is think back to when you were a youngling and you were first thinking about these concepts. What were the things that helped get you over the hump to learning, to understanding computer science? This is where I ask you, where's the Commodore 64 is a question, it's not an answer. I don't have the answer to this question.
So I think I was always sort of technical, as in I loved technology as a kid, but I never thought I could actually code until I went and sort of working as a project manager and then learned to code. So I think it was something where at any time you talk to someone, say, let me go read about this, and it was super, super detailed at a theoretical level, super advanced. And there was you're an idiot because you don't know this stuff, not that you're just starting out, and you're not expected to know these things. No one ever said that. So that to me, I never had anything to play with, and I never felt okay breaking things.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that because I also had queued up this Commodore instruction manual here, and this is the first thing they teach you programming. This computer, your first program is to print something and then go to 10. This is what every person did on Commodore. But instead of typing print, they put this question mark here, and they start talking about how certain symbols create these keywords in there randomly. And they just sort of throw this detail in there long before you actually need to know that stuff. So that's something that I would like to see more of, is being mindful of that when you're teaching this stuff. Anybody else want to tell me about it? Tell everyone, really, not me. And we can also have conversations about this in the breakouts later.
I think as a young teenager, HTML was awesome. So you had that really quick feedback loop. It's, body PG color equals, you type in whatever, and you just have to see what happens. How the browser deals with it. I think that was kind of brilliant. And I think that will continue to be kind of brilliant. Kids that want websites. Everybody wants to create some content.
View source.
Right?
View source. I can steal that. Oh, yes.
Yeah, the first programming I did was actually on Atari. You could get these horrible keyboard controllers, and there's a basic console that you could plug in. So I never had a Commodore. I was jealous of my friends who did. I spent hours in that thing, and as you saw, it was all it was on. But kind of piggyback on what you said, I've been working with a group called Coder Dojo, teaching kids how to code. And one of the things that we do is we just open up a developer console, say their school's website, and teach them how to destroy their school's website. That's always really popular. And it's interesting because they ask questions that I didn't ask until I was in grad school. So, one first question the kid will ask is, so if I do this, what does it affect what other people see? And they're asking questions about client server computing within 30 minutes the first time they've touched any code at all. And that's kind of astounding. So.
Do they know they actually know the words server client? Do you teach them that in the first 30 minutes?
No, but we do talk about, this is
concept.
just affecting what you see and what they would need to do. They'll ask, how can I make it stay this way? And we'll talk about using, Grease Monkey or user styles or something like that so they can keep their customizations, and then talk about, what they would have to do in order to actually, we don't teach them how to hack the server, but it's quite good. No,
they'll figure that out in a couple of years anyway. So.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
Right.
Actually, the day after you submitted this talk, I randomly discovered an app that's on Nintendo's eStore called Smile Basic, which is a basic implementation for the 3DS that gives you access to all of the controllers and the touchscreen and the display screen, and it comes with Sprite
Are
library.
you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding. This is a real thing.
I'm gonna go download that like
What's it called again?
Smile Basic.
Basic.
Otherwise, that's a very sealed platform, and I always wish I could do stuff with a touchscreen, but I'm not gonna pay $20,000 to play with a 3DS. I think that's about the time I have. I would love to talk more about your experiences, because I'm always thinking about ways to help educate with this stuff. That's what I do. So.